begins.
So, Dave here, and we're back again after the holidays, actually. And normally I'd be joined by Amboy, but he's been out traveling for the holidays, and I think he's just getting back into town just right now, so he wasn't able to actually get involved in the scheduling of this interview. So he'll probably be on the next one. But we're here at, once again, we're here at the Lucky Llama.
Are we lucky?
Which seems to be the official, unofficial sponsor of World Saves Podcast, because I've recorded a couple of episodes here. I'm here with someone I've known for a long time, Leslie Westbrook, and she and I go back, I don't know.
100 years, back to the last century.
I don't know, it was 20-something years ago, I think it was, and I can't even remember exactly, but you must have been a guest on...
The Baron.
The show was it? No, it was before the Baron. It wasn't it the old KTMS KYT News Radio at 1250. You were on a couple of shows that I produced, I think.
Probably.
I don't remember.
Anyway, we've been in the studio together before.
Exactly.
This isn't our first rodeo.
So yeah, Leslie, thanks for joining me. Leslie is she's a travel writer and a travel editor and somebody who's kind of interesting, and a mission that I'm on here on the World Service Podcast is just to get to know people at Carpinteria.
Cool.
And just to see what's on their minds. And, Leslie, actually, I knew you before we both lived in Carpinteria.
Right.
But now we both live here. And
yeah, luckily we live here.
Yes, indeed. So I thought we'd bring you on.
Thank you.
And talk to you a little bit about what you're doing.
Cool.
All right. And it's just a nice sunny day.
Beautiful day. Kids are skipping. And
exactly.
Very cute little one here in a fur vest.
And... we're going to have a little license-free music in the background here with the band playing in the background.
Yeah, don't you just love Carpinteria?
Well,
you never know. You just step out into town and there's always something wonderful going on.
It's license-free until they sue me for unauthorized distribution of their performance.
Yeah, I'm sure this will go viral.
I'm sure both the people who listen to it will be offended. So, so here we are. It's another lovely day in Carpinteria. And... you were one of the first people that I thought of when I thought about doing a podcast. I thought, well, who are all the interesting people that I know in Carpinteria? And I know a lot, and you're certainly one of them. I really wanted to bring you on because a little flavor to the community. So welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, let's get a sense of who you are and what you do.
Okie doke.
So you're a travel writer.
I've been a freelance journalist for over 30 years with an emphasis on travel. So I've been a travel writer and reporter all that time. And but I also write on other subjects. I write about design and profiles of people, houses, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So, whatever, the pen takes me a lot of different places.
Now, so explain to me exactly how that works, because you can describe yourself as a freelancer, which means basically that you
practically work for free.
Well, yeah, and that you don't really have a reliable source of income in that you don't, or not, I shouldn't say reliable, but guaranteed.
That's true.
You don't have a guaranteed source of income because you're sort of
freelance
out there on doing your own thing. So what comes first? I mean, do you get...
The chicken or the egg?
Yeah. Do you get clients that want you to write a certain type of a story for them, or do you come up with a story idea and then you shop it to different publications?
It works both ways. I'll have editors. So I work for magazines and newspapers, and so I'll have editors that will come to me with an idea and say, do you want to write about this place or this person?
Right.
Or it'll be the other way around. I'll get excited about something. Like I just pitched something to Carpinteria magazine, and it was a goofy thing because I was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean a couple of months ago in Hawaii on assignment, and I went into a little health food store and I bought some curry bouillon and some rice crackers. And I looked on the back, just happened to be looking at the ingredients, and here I am in Hawaii, and it says, imported by Edward & Sons, Carpinteria. I'm like, who the heck are they? So, so I immediately, shoot an email off to Leah and say, hey, have you ever, I bet you've covered them, right? They've been in business since 1978 in Carpinteria. And everybody's going, who are they?
Wow.
So, I like to get scoops. I like to find things that people don't know about. And yeah, that's the exciting part. And then I get to travel a lot. So yeah, this is home base for me, but like next month I'm going to Mexico on assignment, and then to Palm Springs, and there comes someone down the driveway.
And there comes the car. See, now, under a normal circumstance, I would be very concerned about that little noise going by. I don't care.
That's life in carp.
This is just a, slice of reality podcast. Right. So if your phone goes off in the middle of the interview, or a fire truck goes by during the middle of the interview or whatever, who cares?
Embrace it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but since you asked, so it's been a more difficult way to make a living as time has gone by, just because of the internet and everything. I'm sure that's happened a lot with photographers.
Yeah.
Everybody has an iPhone. Everybody's a photographer.
Yeah.
So I've had to find other ways to make an income. So I have a couple of other things that I do. And then, so when I've traveled, I bought art and antiques and brought them back. And I had a couple of antique shops that were very short-lived. But about 6 years ago, I started working with auction houses, with Bonhams, Christie's, Sotheby's, all the internationally and nationally. And I help people that want to sell high-end art through auction. So that's my other hat, and that's something I'm going to be focusing on a lot more this year.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Do you have like a website set up right now?
I'm just getting that together. I mean, I have a Facebook page, but
right.
yeah, I actually just met with a graphic designer yesterday I said, okay, I've been doing this word of mouth, helping friends. I've had clients in Portugal, selling in London, and in England, selling in Hong Kong. I said, but I'm going to really put myself out there.
Right.
So yeah, I'm just in the process of getting that all together.
Okay, very good.
But
very
I'm here,
good.
and people can still find me. So
right, exactly. So you can search for you online or whatever.
Yeah, Leslie Westbrook. You can 805-220-6773.
Oh my goodness! You gave your phone number out over the internet.
Yeah, and I'm single too.
Yeah. Well, very, very, very good. So now I'm kind of curious. I'm still a little curious about this the writing thing.
Right.
When you come up with a story idea, what do you have to do first, or do you always have to do the same thing first? Do you have to have a client? Do you have to
a contract? It's called a contract.
It's a contract. Okay.
Yeah, you have a contract with a publisher.
So you go out and pitch the storyline to the publisher before you actually write a word. Yeah.
That's the normal way that you do stuff. That doesn't mean that sometimes after the fact you might have a story, or that a story will come up, particularly if it's in form of an essay. Like I wrote for Next Avenue, which is kind of a big website, part of PBS.
Yeah.
And I've done essays for them on, how I became a fairy godmother, and you can be one too. Well, that's not something I pitched ahead of time. That was just something noodling around in my brain, thinking, I really should write about how you be a fairy godmother.
Okay, well, I'm curious. How do I become a fairy godmother?
Well, you could be a fairy godfather, or person, he, she, thee, they.
That's your thing,
A gender-neutral fairy god person, to be correct.
Okay, well.
Do you have kids?
I have grandkids.
Oh, nice. Do you like children?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, so you just have to like kids.
Yeah.
And I keep a magic wand with me at all times. I just change purses. Really? But I take it with me on airplanes and concerts. It's really good with 3-year-olds. I seem to have left it in my other purse because I ran out fast. But, and you just do, it's kind of like being a grandparent.
Yeah.
But you have wings and you fly around and you just do nice things and have conversations with the little people.
How fun. And it's just the people that you're meeting at random.
Airplanes. Grocery stores are really fun because usually the mother or the father is really distracted.
Yeah.
And, the kid's having a meltdown. And I just whip out this little wand and it just calms everybody down. So,
well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's actually a really neat idea, and
it's pretty fun.
It would be a lot of fun, actually. It's something that I used to do, kind of like something I used to do at Christmas time. I'd go out with friends of mine, and we would all, dress up and be in like Santa hats and outfits and stuff, and then engage with little children at restaurants and stuff.
fun.
And tell them all kinds of stories about Santa Claus.
Oh, I love it.
And
so you're a Santa's elf.
Yeah,
so it's kind of the same thing. We're all part of the same family.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny too, because kids are always think they're smarter than everybody else.
And they are.
They are.
Usually. They're a lot more fun.
When you give them a little bit of information about something, and all of a sudden you see the light come on in their eyes, they go, "Oh yeah, that's a lot of fun," And so like dealing with little kids in Christmas and like making them think about Christmas, and who is Santa and what does he really do,
right?
And what and it's I'm certainly not trying to turn this interview into a thing
Santa
about
Claus?
me, but Santa Claus. But what? And I have a whole long spiel worked out, but what I would usually start with was who is Santa Claus, because you know who Santa Claus is, right? I mean,
Sure.
you know Santa Claus's name, right?
Right, it's old Saint Nick, yeah.
Okay, well, Saint Nick,
Yeah.
right? Saint Nick is Santa Claus, right? Well, who's Kris Kringle?
Oh, that's his cousin.
Well, that's the thing. Most people think, Kris Kringle's Santa Claus too. Well, yeah, he is.
Well, what about Papa Noel? See, Papa Noel lives in Argentina.
See, there's a lot of names for Santa, and so. And all of a sudden, you see a kid realize, Saint Nick. There's Saint Nick. I've heard of him, and there's Kris Kringle. Wait a minute.
Maybe that's a Krispy Kreme donut.
They can't be the same guy. One's named Chris. One's named Nick. They're two different guys. And I would always go to kids and say, well, what the real story about Santa is that it's not his name, it's his title.
Ah.
Right, it's like like a guy or a girl, run for president of the United States, and they become president of the United States, and then people will call them Mr. or Mrs. President.
Right.
Well, it's not their name. They're not.
Right.
They're not called. It doesn't say Mr. President on their driver's license.
Right.
But that's their title, and people call him that. So people call Santa Claus because that's his title.
Oh, that explains it.
So Saint Nick was one Santa Claus.
I see.
And Kris Kringle was another Santa Claus.
And Papa Noel, I guess.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
Another.
And I used to work for Santa Claus, and so I know
You're on a first name basis.
Exactly, and a personal experience on the way the Santa organization works, and the Santa that I worked for, his name was Hector Gomez.
Oh wow.
Right.
Well.
He was just a guy, and he rose up through the ranks, and the old Santa decided to retire, and the new Santa took over, and there you go.
And what about Mrs. Claus?
Well, that's it's like the first lady.
Oh, okay.
Mrs. Claus will change
got it. Okay.
as the administration changes.
I see. Well, that's good to know. You really cleared up a lot of confusion in my brain.
But it's funny though, because when you talk to a kid and you see that light come on, like, wait a minute. That kind of makes sense.
Well, it is interesting because I've had people challenge me, children, and how do I know you're a fairy godmother? And I'll say, well, close your eyes, and I'm going to spin around and see if you see my wings. And some of them do, and some of them don't. Yeah. And then I asked another one. I was actually it's my birthday last June. I was in Mexico in a beauty parlor, and I had a bunch of little girls around me. And one of them said, she's not a fairy godmother. And then the little girl rang out and said, yes, she is. I see her wings.
Yeah.
So, it's really lovely to live in that fantasy magical world. I think we all, it's just a good place to be. Sometimes when the outside world gets to be too much.
Yeah. And I think as adults, I think it's important for us to make sure we keep a connection to that.
Tune into our inner child.
Yeah, because we all tend to lose that as we get older.
Yeah, we got to be playful.
And occasionally you have to remind yourself that this is life is but a dream, right? Yeah, it's like you're just having fun, right?
Got to lighten up every once in a while.
Exactly. So so that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, fairy godmother.
Right. So you're you're sort of out there, doing your thing,
flying around with my magic pen. It takes me all over the place as a travel writer. Got my fairy godmother pen with me.
That's fun.
Yeah, and I have a good life. I'm really grateful. I wake up every morning and say, I'm so lucky. And I'm so lucky to live in Carpinteria.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to point that out because being someone who's writing about travel and going to various destinations, around the country and around the globe, you get to see the best of things. Of course, especially when you're writing about some, place or some organization or some whatever, they're going to put on their best face for you, so that you're going to have the better experience than the average Joe, I think, because they just kind of go out of their way to make sure you have a good time if they know you're there.
If they know, yeah, sometimes they know, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, and so so it's an opportunity to kind of experience the world for what it is, and then to get to come home to Carpinteria. I think it's
a great place to come home to. And I sort of merge the worlds because, as you know, our population in Carpinteria is about 48% Latino and about 17% are undocumented. So I try to go to Mexico as much as possible and work on my Spanish because I like to work. I started the Indivisible group here in Carp, and so our whole thing is helping our immigrant neighbors, particularly the ones that have a family member deported or live in the low-income housing. So sometimes the father might be deported, and the children in our community are, a lot of times, not always, but in many times, the children are bilingual, and the mother may not be. And you can't always communicate with a mother with my limited Spanish. There are things you might want to talk about that you don't want to talk about in front of a 12-year-old boy or an 8-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So I try to, right now I'm going back to, I spent a month in Mexico last year on assignment, but took Spanish classes for a couple of weeks, and I'm doing the same next month because I want to keep my Spanish up. I'm hoping City College might, start some language classes down here. There's one Spanish class one Monday afternoons at the library here, but you kind of you have to stay with it and get in it more to really practice.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, practicing piano or whatever, you have to practice.
Exactly.
You just don't learn it and then you keep it and then you use it. You have to kind of use it all the time to make it.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about Indivisible now, because I've seen you guys. I didn't realize that you were one of the organizers of that group.
Yep, on the corner.
Okay,
we had Fed Up Fridays, and now we have some of our group is down at another corner down by the high school. Our biggest protests lately have been about the separation of children and parents at the border.
Yeah.
So again, when we first organized, it'll be 3 years ago, and our first meeting was right across the street at the library. 80 people showed up. And it was Gabby Edwards and me and Catherine. And we said, okay, so we're all here. We all know we're upset about Trump being elected. What do we want to do? And I said, do you want to work on climate change? Do you want to work on women's issues? Do you want to work on, and immigration? And I was thrilled because immigration was really what I vibrated to. And everybody raised their hands. So we had a food drive where we worked with the farm cart. I've worked in conjunction with a social worker at the People's Low-Income Housing. And she'll call every once in a while, if there's a family that needs help. And, we'll help with little bits of money for gas or shoes or whatever people need. And, and sometimes it's really busy and sometimes it's really quiet. And we just want people to know we're a resource here for them, for our Latino families.
Now, did that... forgive my ignorance, but I'm not sure exactly. Did that organization start here in Carpinteria?
No, there's 6,000 of them across the country.
That was what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, it was started in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And it was started by former congressional aides that took the Tea Party model and used that kind of protest to change things. And as you know, the Democrats got the House of Representatives back. So we've done, with Tara O'Reilly, we did postcard writing for candidates. We're just trying to, swing the tide a little bit here.
Right. Well,
so obviously, my politics lean to the left.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
It's no secret.
Well, we're friends on Facebook. It's no secret at all.
Yeah, rant and rave there.
Yeah, well, that's. I applaud that, regardless of what your politics are. I applaud that because I feel that everybody should be more involved in their community.
Absolutely.
Because it helps to connect you to that community and really makes you feel part of something.
Absolutely.
And a lot of us spend time kind of, going through life with the blinders on and just trying to focus on, making a living and trying to take care of your family and doing the things that you have to do, and we forget sometimes that we're part of a larger community, and it really helps to make us feel like we're part of something if we kind of reach out and do proactive things in the community.
Well, this community is so incredible in terms of volunteers for the Bluffs and the library and the Franklin Trail and the Arts Center, on and on. And I lived in Summerlin for 30 years before I moved here, and I wish I'd moved down here 30 years ago. I've been here about 7-8 years, but I have to say, starting that Indivisible group was what really connected me to the community, and where I developed friendships with people that are lifelong carpentarians. So it was so important. And yeah, I had an intern from UCSB years ago, and he didn't think anything about voting. And he was with me a year. He said, "What do you want for your birthday?" I said, "I want you to vote. I don't care how you vote.
Yeah.
I want you to vote."
Yeah.
And so he brought me the little stub. He said, "I registered." Now he's a father with a 4-year-old. And he emailed me the other day, and he said, "Now I see what you meant about voting," right?
Nice.
He's getting it. And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to change the birth date on Henry's birth certificate." So his son can vote. But there's a lot of apathy. But on the other hand, this has really ignited people who we've just kind of gone along, and it's been sort of status quo for so long. Mm-hmm. So there is something to be said for it.
Well, and we see that, as far as I can remember, as an adult, let's say the political, the presidential elections, for example, are really only decided by a couple of percentage points. And so it doesn't take much to swing the pendulum from one side to the other side.
Yeah, we're a pretty split country.
We are.
Electorally, but remember, the person in Wyoming counts 5 more times than we do in California, because Hillary did get 3 million more votes.
Thank you, Electoral College. It's
Anyway, we've been over all that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's strictly carpinteria. So let's
back to carp.
Let's move on from that.
But our citizens have been affected here so many people were so frightened to renew their food stamps, walk their children to school. I mean, there were direct impact, and the kids were playing La Migra, which is the immigration. La Migra is the immigration.
The police or whatever.
Police. Thank you. Yeah. And so, it's trickle-down theory.
Yeah. Well, so it's good. It's good to really, connect with what's happening in the community, and and as you say, that is one unique thing. I think it's unique, anyways, about our area, is that we are really very, very involved.
Volunteer-driven community.
Yeah, and and it's not just carpentry. I mean, I just look at the whole area sort of in general. I talk a lot about, Oprah and Ellen and George Lucas and the people with all the money come to this area. They may not necessarily come to Carpinteria, but they come to Montecito. They come to whatever.
No, Lucas lives on Padera Lane. Ellen had a house over there.
She just sold hers, but she's building a place over on Toro Canyon right now. So. And, of course, she lives in Montecito. But it's like there's a reason that these people come here for that. But also we see that this community is really, it draws together really, really well. And I don't know whether it's because we've been through so many hardships in the past few years or not. But, I saw people, during the Thomas Fire come together. Not that time is really pertinent in podcasting land because you're listening to this whenever you're listening to it, but in actuality, yesterday was the second anniversary of the 1-9 debris flow in Montecito.
Right.
And when you look at organizations like the Bucket Brigade.
Yeah, incredible.
I look at them and I am just blown away.
Yeah, no.
By how
80-year-old people were rolling up their sleeves with shovels and digging people's houses out of the muck.
They were able to just kind of assemble people just out of nowhere. People came together and they started cleaning up, and then here it is 2 years later, and the Bucket Brigade is like a thing. It's like a big thing. It's a real serious organization now that's probably not going to go away anytime soon. And I think that's tremendous. For them as the Bucket Brigade, but it also shows what kind of a spirit we have in this area.
Right.
And I think that there are so many people that are so grateful to live here, that it's easy to get motivated to try to make it as great as it can be because we realize how great it already is and how much more it could be, you know.
Well, we all need to live purposeful lives, right? It's not just about going to our work and our job and coming home. And as you know, it's better to give than receive, or easier, and it makes you feel good to help people, and and people appreciate it.
Right.
I mean, it's the easy thing.
Right. It's one of those things where, it's. I grew up here, and I mean not necessarily in Carpinteria, but in the Santa Barbara area, and it's kind of funny. As a teenager, all I could think about was wanting to get out. Wanting to see the world, wanting to move to LA or somewhere and go live in the big city and, go to concerts and restaurants and things and, and just get out there and see the world. And then I got out there and saw the world, and I realized that the world isn't all it was cracked up to be. And maybe
there's a lot of traffic.
Yeah. And so maybe it's all right here. And so as I grew older, I got to love the area even more. I realized how, and I was just talking to my wife about this just this morning, as a matter of fact, as we were driving back from Santa Barbara, and we were driving along the 101 freeway in Summerlin and looking at that stretch of coastline there. It's so beautiful coming down Ortega Hill, and you see the big expanse. And, we take that for granted here in Carpinteria a lot of times. We've got the mountains right there. We've got the ocean right there. And we can see it every day. And some people go their whole lives without seeing either.
They've never been in the ocean or seen the ocean or had an avocado. I've met people who've never even had an avocado. And here we have vats full. Exactly. We have the world's largest bowl of avocado.
Exactly. And so it's easy to forget that it's not like this everywhere.
Right.
And so the older I get, the more I appreciate that. The younger I was, the more I took it for granted. And the older I get, the more I realize that it is a really special place to be.
Oh, yeah. When I drive into town to go to the market or the farm cart or the library, I mean, in my head, I'm going, I love this town. Yeah. I am so lucky to live here. I love this little town. It's so sweet. It's just like, I call it Mayberry by the sea.
It is, and I've used the same, Mayberry. I've used that as an analogy for Carpinteria before because, I'm boring the podcast audience with this because they've all heard this before. But I've lived all over this county in the years that I've been here in Santa Barbara County. I've lived up in Santa Maria and Lompoc. I've lived in Goleta, Santa Barbara, Summerlin. I used to live it's Ventura County technically, but down in La Conchita. I've lived all over this area, and when I landed in Carpinteria, I just loved it more than anywhere else I had been.
Yeah, I wished I'd moved here 30 years ago instead of Summerlin. It's like, oh, gosh, I really blew it.
I used to live in Summerlin, too, and I found that Summerlin was a bit Montecito adjacent.
Not for me, but what I loved about Summerlin is everybody, you had no mail delivery. So the post office was the heartbeat of the town. Yeah. And I'd walk all the time, and I'd walk to the post office. I'd walk the beach, so I was always in good shape.
Yep.
And, you'd always see all your neighbors at the post office.
Exactly.
And it did have that, we have places here like where we are now, Lucky Llama, but there was, Cafe Luna, which was original Bulldog.
Right.
So, yeah, I loved Summerland, and I'll always be a Summerlandian, but now I'm a Carpinterian.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where you kind of land where you land.
Exactly.
And you learn to adapt to wherever you are. And sometimes you find that when you don't expect something, all of a sudden it comes jumping out at you. And so I wasn't expecting anything when I came to Carpinteria.
How long have you been here?
I've been here for almost 20 years now.
Okay.
It's been, my wife and I have been together for 17 years. And I moved in, right as we got together, because I lived in La Conchita when we got together, and she was living here in Carpinteria. And so I moved out of La Conchita and moved in here to Carpinteria. So I love it here. I really do. And it's one of those things I wasn't really expecting it.
Right.
Because I remember Carpinteria. I'm going to get angry emails for this, but send them to worldsafestspeech@gmail.com. I remember Carpinteria from the old days. One of my best friends lived here back in the 70s. Uh-huh. So I lived out in Goleta, so I'd come ride my ride the bus all the way and down and hang out with him. And then I had other friends of mine who still live here, and I won't mention their names, that I used to hang out with like in the 80s and stuff. And, Carpinteria was kind of, it wasn't a dump exactly, but it wasn't as nice as it is now.
Well, we have a lot more restaurants and
yeah, we do. That's
like
the thing.
Chario's Kitchen.
Exactly.
So we're going to have a new Little Dom's, right?
Exactly.
When is that
Where I don't know. It's been forever since they've been working on it, but I've been by there. It looks like it's almost ready to go.
Really?
So I don't know. But yeah, so Carpinteria, I like I said, wasn't exactly a dump, but it wasn't as nice as it was. And I remember not really being that impressed with Carpinteria back in the 70s and 80s. Not like I was not impressed with it. There was nothing special about it. Mm-hmm. And then all these years later, I come to Carpinteria and I realize, wow, it's really awesome.
It is.
And the thing is, like, I grew up out in Goleta.
Well, I won't hold that against you.
Yeah.
The good land.
Yeah, the good land.
Actually, there's really beautiful parts of Goleta.
Well, there are, but
there's a lot of suburban sprawl.
Every time I go out there now, I have to say that it's like going to the San Fernando Valley. It really is.
A lot of urban sprawl.
We've
avoided that because of our flower growers.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that people forget about Carpinteria. And not that I want to go down too far down this road, because we've talked about this on the show before, but there are some people that are supportive of the growers, and some people that aren't supportive of the growers, and that's how I look at it. Because one of the subjects for discussion here in Carpinteria is pot.
Big discussion.
And we grow a lot of cannabis here. We've become one of the state's largest cannabis producers now. All of a sudden, we're like taking it away from Humboldt County, and we're bringing it on down here. And a lot of people just want to see the cannabis industry go away. They don't like it. They don't like the way it smells. They don't think it's bad. Drugs are bad, and you shouldn't smoke pot. And the kids are gonna drop out of high school or whatever because And the thing is that I'm not necessarily pro-pot so much as I'm pro-grower. Because people forget that...
These are the grandchildren of the original flower growers that are able to make a living here now.
Exactly. And,
it's a very complicated subject. It's not black or white.
People forget that, the growers here were really going through a crisis because the South American and international flower market was really undercutting them. And so they weren't able to sell their flowers for what they were getting before. And when cannabis became legal, they looked at it, well, it's another plant.
Right.
And it's a plant that is worth a lot of money. So let's grow that plant instead of this plant, And so now the Carpinteria cannabis operations are paying people, living wages. They're hiring more people. They're really contributing to and they're, donating to charity. They're doing all kinds of things to be good neighbors. And the thing is, if we run the cannabis growers out of town somehow, who's going to take their place? Well, it's not going to be. It's not. Yeah, it's not. They're not going to be.
They'll pay paradise and put up
exactly.
A
They're not going to be growing broccoli out there in those fields or whatever.
The land's too valuable.
They're going to sell that land, and it's going to become developed. And so let's keep it agriculture as far as I'm concerned. Let's do it. And if you don't like pot, whatever. I don't know. You got to get over it.
There you go.
It's
legal. The state voted for it.
It's the 20.
It has to be fixed on the federal level in terms of the banking.
Exactly.
That's the big issue, and that's the concern is that it's a cash industry, and so there is some concern about criminality and cash and all that. So we want everybody to be safe and happy and blowing in the wind.
Yeah, I totally agree. So. We'll see. We'll see where it goes, and that stay tuned to the space for developing details.
You'll have to have some of the pot growers on. And, Annie Louise Bardock.
I would like to have some growers on. We've had Peter Dugray, who works for carp growers or works with carp growers, on the show, and we talked a lot about that. And we had Doss Williams on. A few weeks ago, and we spent a lot of time talking about that too. So, but I'd love to have some growers on to get kind of their perspective on what's happening. And to be honest with you, I would be okay with having a representative of the anti-pot.
Yeah, you should have Annie Louise Bardock on. Have her talk about their point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that because I don't want to censor anybody's point of view, but I just want everybody to just get along somehow.
Exactly. Why can't we just all get along?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I go through is the admin of World Safest Beach on Facebook. I spent a lot of time sort of acting as referee between people who are arguing with each other, and it's okay as far as I'm concerned to argue, to debate, to discuss your differences.
Kind, yeah.
That's the thing. And when did we exactly become so uncivil in America?
Well,
I don't know. Was it
the Civil War?
Was it? Well, yeah. Was it the internet that like really brought it?
People have always, the man has that tendency.
Well, that's very
not a very nice tendency.
That's very true. But I think that when you're seeing people face to face that you disagree with, you tend to be a little more respectful. And when you interact when you interact with people on the internet that you disagree with, you tend to call them stupid or whatever, and not just that you're wrong, you're bad.
Well, and tone, on the internet and emails, tone is really hard to decipher.
Well, yeah, it's because you don't see the person.
God knows I get mad. I'm half Sicilian, so I let my temper can go sometimes, but I let it go when I'm over it.
Right.
But I don't hold it in.
Right.
For whatever that's worth.
Right. Well, so I just wish that everybody could just get along a little bit more.
Okay.
So.
Rodney King.
I do. Come on,
No, we all want that, a peaceful world.
Exactly. So here we are. Carpinteria. It's a nice day.
Sun's going down.
The sun is going down.
When
yes,
the
it
sun
is.
goes down,
yeah, and so let's see here. We've been actually going on for quite a long time, so we should wrap it up. We probably should wrap it up here. So you'd think that I have like a plan or a format or whatever in my head. No, I just go till I stop.
We can sing Good Night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams.
So Leslie, thanks for joining me on my silly little podcast.
This is fun. Thanks for inviting me down. It's fun to chat with you. I'm so glad you picked a day when we have the harmonica and the Americ hats playing in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
Super fun.
It is a lot of fun, and just one of those things.
I see my friend Jesse over there. I'm going to say hi to from the apiary.
Oh.
Happy New Year.
So yeah, just another advantage of being in Carpinteria. Oh,
videographer.
Hey, Larry, how you doing?
All right, so
Well, we are, and I'm going to get you on this podcast one of these days.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Well,
Larry never talking.
Anyway, well, thanks for asking me down.
Okay, well,
to the
thanks.
local hoedown here.
Yeah, well, thank you, and we'll put it together and come back. I don't know whenever we decide to do another podcast, and maybe Amboy will be with me next time. So in the meantime,
cool. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Happy New Year to you and everybody who tunes in.
Well, thanks you too.
The world's safest beach.